Hello and welcome to BHC AutoCAD course with your host tonight, Tim Richards. I will be taking you through this amazing piece of software, and at the end of it, you're going to know how to use pretty much all the functions that you will need to know to get you started on your 2D AutoCAD journey. So you notice I'm looking off to the side right now. That's because I'm referring to these notes, the ones that you'll have as well. And so as we go through it back and forth, I'm going to switch between the notes and the AutoCAD itself. But you'll be able to see clearly what I'm reading in both situations. So yeah, let's get started. Let's just jump straight into the first video here. I'll let you read the contents and the introduction in your own time. But we're going to start on chapter 2, and that is the user interface. Okay, this is what you're going to see the first time that you open the program. And as you know, or you should know, if you are a short course student here at BHC, or you're doing this as part of your full-time studies, you can get an educational version, of AutoCAD, the very latest one, for free by registering with Autodesk. They are the makers of the AutoCAD software and some other really cool software as well. So for a lot of the features that I'm going to demonstrate, it helps to have a new drawing open in AutoCAD first. So we're going to just create one right off the bat before we get into the user interface itself. And the easiest way to do that is after you've opened the program, you should see a screen like this. This is your start screen, or your getting started screen. You can click right up here to start a new drawing, or you can select one by choosing one here from one of the templates. Now, there's a lot of templates that come set up with AutoCAD. Because we use the metric system in South Africa, we're going to go with an ISO-based template. And there's a couple here. We're going to choose this one here, okay? ACAD ISO, or AutoCAD ISO. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to start me with a new drawing here. So this will be a little bit easier for me to show you all the various user interface features. Okay, here's the main interface. So at the top here, you've got your quick access toolbar. All right, there it is up there. You've got your ribbon at the top, which is this band of tools over here. All right, you've got these drawing tabs. Here they are over here, the start one and the new drawing that you just created. This thing over here that looks like a compass, that's your view cube. It's your navigation bar on this side. This is your command window down here at the bottom. Okay, your UCS, which we'll get into, your model space and paper space tabs, and your status bar here at the bottom right. And we're going to go into these in a little more detail now. So let's go back to the notes. Okay, workspaces. Right, so I just want to go over workspaces quickly. This is accessible through this tiny little cog down here. Now, if you guys have a fresh install of AutoCAD, you should be seeing everything on your screen pretty much the way I'm seeing it here. If you have a very older computer, or maybe your monitor's not that high resolution, okay, you might not see all of these panels here. Might be a little bit squashed like this. You might have to click on something to see more. But more or less, you should be seeing a screen like this. If for some reason you don't, it's because maybe someone has changed the setting on yours, but you need to go down to this cog button in the corner and just check that drafting and annotation is checked, okay? Workspaces are basically different layouts of the user interface, and you need to make sure that the one you're using is this one, drafting and annotation. Then we know that we're looking at the same thing, okay? That's what's in the notes. And you also have the same layouts on your computer. So let's go back to the notes now. Application menu and quick access toolbar. Okay, this is this area up here. So there's a big red A or AutoCAD logo, and then we've got a quick access toolbar up there. Okay, and these, as the name implies, it's got new, open, save as. These are some mobile features that have been introduced. We're not going to go into those here. Print, undo, and redo. And you can click on this little button here to add some extra tools, okay? But basically, these are the ones that are always going to be visible no matter what you're doing in AutoCAD. These are your most basic functions over here, okay? Dealing with files. Creating a new file, opening a new file, or opening one that's already on your hard drive saved somewhere, saving the one that you're working in, and then saving it as another copy. Okay, that you should be familiar with this if you've used pretty much any computer program. You can also click on this big AutoCAD A icon here, and you can have access to those same functions and a couple more, and they give you a little more detail over here. You can choose if I want to create a drawing or a sheet set. I've got a few more options to play with over here. But that's a quick access toolbar and the application menu. Okay, that's this menu that pops out over here. Next, we're going to look at the ribbon. So the ribbon is organized into a series of tabs, okay, and these are the ones over here. Insert, annotate, parametric, view, manage. We're going to go through all of them later. And inside each of these tabs are these panels. You can see this one is called draw, this one is called modify, annotation. You might be able to pick up there's a small little separating line here that groups all of these tools here underneath this draw panel, which is this here, and all of these tools here underneath the modify panel, and so on. So everything is organized for you by means of these tabs on the ribbon, and then in these sort of subcategories of panels. Okay, and I've made a note here on the notes, and wherever you see one of these bright yellow call-outs in the notes, it's just something that's particularly important that you need to be aware of, little tips and tricks that are going to help you make your life easier as you work through the course. And so the first one that we come to here on page 5 of the notes is several panels have more tools or settings that you can see at first. Okay, so as we get into it, you'll notice I'm clicking on things that might not be visible here right away. So if I go into draw and I click that little, you can see it says draw, there's a little drop down arrow. If I click that, I can see some of the other tools here that just don't have space to filter in this panel. So they are placed down at the bottom there, and I can also pin it with that little draw pin there to make sure that even when I'm moving around the program, this little slide out drawer stays stuck there. But for now, I want to keep it uncluttered, so I'm just going to leave it the way it was. Okay, I'm going to make it go back there. And in addition to clicking that little arrow, you can also click these little arrows here underneath circles. So you'll see there's many ways to draw a circle, and if I click down there, I can choose one of the other ways to do it. And if I click next to, say, this polygon tool here, I can see there's also the choice for me to draw a rectangle. This one under ellipse, I can draw these 3 types of ellipses. So you need to pay attention to these little drop-down arrows because it means that there's more information or there's more options next to this tool. And if you can't see it at first, just make sure that you've clicked through all of these little panels to make sure that it's not hiding somewhere there first. Okay, the next part of the notes are tooltips. So this is going to be really helpful, and this is something you should you'll probably use throughout AutoCAD when you're still learning, is that if you're ever curious about what something does, you just need to move your mouse over it without clicking. You can just hover over it there, and you'll see rectangular array shows up, and then if I hover a little bit longer, it's now expanded into this oh, it's gone, there we go. It's expanded into this more detailed description of what the tool is. So it tells you what it is, rectangular array, we can see that. It tells you what the tool does, distributes object copies, etc., etc. And then it shows you a little diagram of how it works as well. And then if you'll notice down at the bottom that says array rect, okay, underneath that diagram. And that is the command that you can type in for this tool as well. But we'll get into that in more detail. So just remember that whenever you move over something and you leave your mouse there, just hovering over it, it'll come up with a little tooltip describing what the thing is. And that's really helpful to just learn your way around AutoCAD. Okay, the next part of the user interface we're going to look at is this command window down here. Okay, commands are very fundamental to the way AutoCAD works. Okay, and you can read some of the points there on the notes. Okay, it explains the tool action that you've just selected. It's a place for entering commands or inputting information. It'll show you steps to follow when using various tools. It'll give you a prompt or for a tool or feature if it needs your input. And as you get more comfortable with AutoCAD, you will begin to type commands directly into this bar instead of, say, using the mouse to find the icon or something like that. And in addition to this command window, you'll notice that as you use tools, various things pop up here. It's basically telling you just what the tool is. And it's also repeated next to the mouse cursor in something that AutoCAD calls dynamic input. So if I start typing a command, we'll get into this later. Let's say line. okay, you'll see that it's coming up right here next to my cursor. And if I hit enter, you can see that the command over there has just been entered. This little command pops up, just this little area here. It shows me that I've just entered the line command, and I did that by just typing right here in this blank space. Okay, and now it's asking me to specify the first point in my line. Okay, we're not going to go into the line tool just yet. I just want to show you how commands work. So you can click into the command window and type command over here, line, enter, or, okay, I can just start typing over here without having to click in the command line, okay, and it auto completes. It's like using a cell phone, and I'm going to hit enter to submit the command. There, specify first point. It's given me the line tool. That's exactly what I want. So I can choose if I want to just type in free space, and you'll see it starting to appear next to the cursor. Okay, type command, oops, or you can see it click down there and you can start typing here. Okay, so you have a choice, but there are two important things you need to know when using commands. Okay, the first thing is that whenever you want to submit the command, you've typed in the keyword or what it is you want to do, you need to press enter. Okay, I'm going to type circle, and now I need to press enter to submit this. There, now I've told it that I want the circle tool. And if I ever want to abort a tool, say I'm busy drawing a circle on the side, actually I don't want to draw a circle, I want to go back to just nothing, I don't want to complete any operation, I'm just going to hit the escape key. Okay, escape is called escape for a reason. I want to escape this operation, I hit escape. And you'll see right there at the bottom of the screen, it just reported cancel. Okay, that means that the command window has understood that I wanted to cancel. And I'll give you another example. Let's type line, enter. I'm going to start drawing the line. Draw a couple more. Actually, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to cancel this last line piece. Escape. Okay. So that's a quick way to just get over any command that you don't want to be doing. The next section of the interface we'll look at is the status bar and snapping. These are really important things. Okay. So it's found down here in the bottom right of the interface. Okay, and you can see we've got a little tab here that changes between model space or paper space. We're not going to go through all of these. I'm just going to choose the important ones for right now. You'll see that in the background here I've got a grid going, and that is because this grid icon is selected. Okay, if I click it off, the grid goes away. If I click it again, it turns blue to let you know that's on, and the grid is back. Okay, the next thing is grid snapping. And so if I click on this little thing over here, and it's going to make more sense when I'm actually using a tool, but I'm going to click a line here, and you'll notice that these little digits, it says 2700 right now. It's popped up next to the cursor. It says specify first point 2700. Okay, that is my coordinates in space. And you'll notice that as I move my mouse right now, 28, 2810, 2820, 2830, 2840, it's snapping. Okay. It's going up in 10 millimeter increments. You remember that when we started a new drawing, we're using metric. Okay, so everything is represented to us in millimeters. So that is 2,900 millimeters. And if I move my mouse down now, you'll see the other number changes: 1820, 1790, 1760. Okay, there's no 1762 or 1765. Okay, it's snapping every 10 millimeters, and that is because I've turned grid snapping on. And if I click this little drop down arrow over here, so I can change my snap settings over here, snap spacing 10, let's make that 50. I'll show you what difference this makes. I'm going to click OK to accept this change. Now you'll see as I move over 2700, 2750, 2800, 2850. So this is just a really nice way to keep your drawing quite neat and organized. I know that if you're going to draw something like a floor plan, for example, maybe it's not necessary to be millimeter perfect. Maybe you want to draw in increments of 10. 50 is a bit large perhaps, but increments of 10 is quite a good way to start. And so you can always check that snapping is on if you want to get it to snap to those increments nice and cleanly. Okay. I'm going to turn it off for now though. The next two icons down here are ortho mode and polar tracking. Ortho mode you're not going to use that much, but polar tracking is really important, and I'm just going to use the line tool to demonstrate what that does. It snaps or restricts the cursor to specific angles. So I'm going to start drawing here, and you'll see that a green dotted line comes out there, and as I bring it up towards 90 degrees here, it's snapping there at 90 degrees, and you can change those increments. We'll go into that in more detail, but that is the polar tracking icon right there. The next one we'll look at is this one over here, object snap tracking and object snap. Okay, so the first one of these, just make sure that it's on for now. We'll go into it in more detail later. This one here, you need to make sure that that is on as well, and if you click the little drop down arrow next to it, just make sure that you have all of the following ones checked. Okay, insertion, perpendicular, nearest. Okay, so from the top, endpoint, midpoint, center, intersection, extension, insertion, perpendicular, and nearest. And this will all make sense a bit further on in the notes. But for now, just make sure that all of these ones have a little tick next to them. You can click on them, untick them, click on them again to tick it. Those are the ones that you want ticked. It's going to make your life a lot easier. So that icon needs to be on, and those settings need to be on over there. Okay, so the icon we'll look at next to object snap is this one here, show annotation objects. Just make sure that it's turned on. That's all you need to know for now. And then the last one is workspace switching, which we went over already. Just make sure that it says drafting and annotation. Okay, and let's move on to this little guy down here. This is called the UCS icon. It's this thing that's labeled Y over there and X over there, and this is a part of the user coordinate system in AutoCAD that works a bit like a map. If you've ever heard of a map, you can understand that a coordinate or a point on a map is specified by its longitude and latitude. Okay, it's up-down distance on the globe versus its left-right placement, and so that's how we can accurately place a point in space. Okay, how do we map that space essentially? And so if you've ever heard of the 3 dimensions being X, Y, and Z, well, we're dealing with just the Y and X one here, because we're not doing 3D drawings, even though AutoCAD can do that. We're only doing 2D drawings, okay? So we're only working in 2 out of those 3 axes. We're working in 2 dimensions. So the 1 dimension is the Y, or the Y axis, and this is all the up-down movement. And all the left-right movement is from side to side. That is the X axis, or the X direction. And so this little icon there is just to remind you that the UCS exists and it's always working in the background, and that everything that you draw has a coordinate in space, and these coordinates are mapped out according to these 2 axes here, up down being Y and left right being X. And there's a little note here in the bottom of the page 7. When using a tool and inputting coordinate values, for example, a rectangle tool, when we get there, remember to enter the X-axis value first and then the Y. Okay, so you're always specifying the first point on its left to right sort of orientation, and then its up-down orientation in space. But that all makes sense when we start drawing. Okay, page 8 of the notes. Here we are, general navigation, the navigation bar and the view cube. So these are the last few interface elements that we'll just take a look at. So the primary way to navigate your way around AutoCAD is to use the mouse, okay? It's very simple. I'm just going to draw a couple of objects here on the screen so we can use them as reference points. Basic shapes. Okay, that looks good. So if I want to pan this drawing around, and panning means to slide the drawing around like a page, like sliding it up, down, left, right, okay? It's moving your view over the image or the drawing. So I can do this very simply by just clicking the scroll wheel, okay? Or the middle mouse button, as it's referred to sometimes. Mouse has got 3 buttons, typically, most modern ones do anyway. Your left click, which is the one you do with your index finger, and this is the default sort of click. The right click, which is how you get to shortcuts and various things. And then the middle click, which is what we refer to as actually clicking the scroll wheel. So the easiest way to pan in AutoCAD is to click the scroll wheel, but don't release it. Just click it and hold it in, and you'll see my hand turns to, well, the cursor turns to a little black hand. That means that I am now panning, and I'm just moving the mouse back and forth, up, down, left, right here. I've still got the mouse button pressed in. and I'm sliding the drawing around. And then when I've got it to the place I want, I can just let go of the button. My cursor returns to its normal design there, and my drawing is moved to where I want it. So let's move it down a bit there, over. Okay, I've got it centered. And I did that all just using the middle mouse button. And the next way to navigate around the drawing is to zoom, okay? And this is very easily done with just scrolling the mouse wheel. If I roll it up, I can zoom in, and if I roll it out, I can zoom out, okay? It's very intuitive. And you'll notice that it tends to zoom wherever my mouse is focused. So my cursor's up here in this corner. If I want to roll the mouse wheel now, it's going to kind of go towards that corner. And if I zoom out, let's draw something else down here. If I position my cursor in the center of this object and start to roll the mouse wheel forward to zoom in, you'll see that it tends to concentrate the zoom on the area where my mouse is looking, if that makes sense. So let's say I want to look at this in detail. I'm not going to hold my mouse cursor here and then start rolling it up and down, because it's going to zoom to where my mouse is, okay? If I want to look here, I'm going to move my mouse there first and then start scrolling so I can zoom where I want to go, okay? And then the last piece of mouse navigation that's worth knowing is the shortcut menu, which is just right-clicking. If I do it in empty space, I can see a couple of options pop up. And if I have an object selected and I right-click on it, I can see some options pop up that are specific to that object, okay? And it's always just a click away. Just right-click and you'll get a whole bunch of extra settings and common shortcuts for whatever tool you're using or something to do with the drawing space. Okay, now we'll take a look at the navigation bar. And this is just this little flap that's on the right hand side of your screen here. There's a couple tools here. Most of them we're not going to use, but the first one to look at is just pan. So we already know how to do this because we used the middle mouse wheel to do it. But if for some reason it's not working, or you have a mouse that doesn't allow you to click the scroll wheel, you can use the hand icon off this navigation bar, and then you can use the left click and click on your drawing and just hold the click in, move it around, let go when you're happy with where you've placed it. And that's how to pan using the icon instead of the middle mouse wheel. And the last one here is zoom extents. And this is quite a useful way of zooming. Is what it does is it zooms the drawing out to the point where it can see the furthest piece of geometry that you've drawn, okay? It zooms it out so that everything that you've drawn is visible. And this might come in useful because you might end up drawing a lot of detail like this, and then you draw something maybe over here, and then you go back to this area and you work a little bit here. Let's say you work a few hours and maybe you forgot where you've drawn something, or you're zooming out and you're like, where is that thing that I drew? Well, you can use the zoom extents tool by just clicking on it here, and it'll zoom the drawing out to the point where all the geometry that you've drawn is visible here. You can see those pieces I drew are now up here, and this one down here is also visible. So it's a good way just to get an overview of your drawing, and in case you've lost a piece of geometry or something, you can zoom right out to where it is in its furthest corners, and you can locate it. And the last thing on the interface that we're going to chat about is just this thing up here in the corner. That's called the view cube. It's only really relevant when we're working in 3D, so we're not going to use it very much. The only thing to note about it is that sometimes it can go wrong. And you'll see right now it's focused on top, it's showing, and I've got north, east, south, west, this compass direction here. If I were to accidentally click on this little corner here, you'll see this drawing, the plane has changed, okay? I was looking almost at it from, well, top down, but now it looks like it's gone into 3D, and it's giving me this isometric or perspective view. This is not how I want to draw in 2D, okay? This is not relevant to me. So, and I might even make it even worse. I mean, you might even end up going something like this and then rotating it. And you can see now my drawing's completely lost. I don't understand where I am anymore. That's because something has gone wrong with this view cube. Maybe you've clicked it accidentally. The easiest way to restore this is to go to that little house icon right there. Click on that. Takes me back to this view, and then from there I can navigate to top. And that is the view that we're going to be using for the rest of this course. So if for some reason your drawing gets completely messed up, you don't know how to get it back, just click on that little home icon there. And that brings us to the last of the user interface elements. Next chapter will be object selection and object grips, and that's chapter 3. Okay, chapter 3, object selection and object groups. So we're going to do this using our mouse and keyboard. And the simplest way to select an object, and I'm going to draw one quickly, is just to hover your mouse over the object, and as I get over it, you'll see it gives me a little bright border around it. That lets me know that it's the focus of my cursor. And if I click now just once, one left click, it's going to select it. And you know it's selected because it's shown these little grips here, which are these little blue boxes. See, the corner ones are square, and the ones that are on these lines that connect the corners are a little bit elongated. But you can always tell when something is selected because you will see these blue grips around it. And it's got this kind of border. I'll show you, this is not selected, it's just a plain white line. And selected, it's got that blue grips, okay, and a little sort of a glowing border around it almost. That's how you know something is selected. I'm going to draw a few more here for the exercise. A couple of extra shapes here. That looks good. Okay, so I can select single objects by just highlighting and clicking them like that, okay? And then if I want to select another object, so I want to select this one as well, while that one is selected, I just click again on here. Okay, there. And if I want to select this one too, I make sure it's highlighted by moving my mouse over it, and then I click once to add it to the selection. So I've now got 3 things selected, okay? And if I decide that maybe I don't want that one selected again, I can deselect it. And the way I do this is by holding in the Shift key on my keyboard, okay? It's the one, this one is far left corner on the bottom, just above the Control key, Shift. So I hold in the Shift key, and then I can click on that object that I want to deselect. So there, it's gone. I'm still holding in Shift. I can click on a second object if I wanted, or a third, however many you want. And I've deselected that. Now I can let go of Shift, and I'm down to just one object selected again. If I want to go back and select the other 2, or a couple different ones, I can just start clicking again. Click, click, click. There we go. I've selected those 4 objects. And if I want to cancel my selection, it's the same shortcut as cancelling a command, okay? Just press Escape. Now nothing is selected. So that's how to select one object. That's how to select a few at a time. I can do them by just clicking. And the other way to do it is by using selection windows, okay? And there are 2 types. There's a left to right selection window, and this starts by just clicking once in space somewhere. Now if I move my cursor from left to right like this, you'll see that a blue box starts appearing. And as those objects fall inside the blue box, have a look at this one down here, you'll see there, it becomes highlighted once all of it falls inside that blue box. And as I keep moving over, you'll see there, this one is now included, and now the circle will be included as soon as I move the box over it there. So everything that is inside this blue box is being selected, okay? And I'm doing this by clicking once to place it at the corner of the box up there, and then I'm just moving my mouse down and to the left, sorry, down and to the right in order to draw this box. And then when I let go and click a second time, that box it applies itself to all the objects, okay? So everything that was in that box becomes selected. I'm just going to deselect this now by hitting Escape. I'm going to show you the other way to draw that selection box, okay? So the first was click once, move from left to right, click again, select a bunch of objects. The second way is to do the same thing. I'm going to click once, I'm going to place the top point over here, and instead of moving from left to right and drawing a blue box, I'm going to move from right to left. I'm going to draw a green box. And this thing functions the same way as the blue box, but instead of the objects having to be completely within the blue box, when you draw a green box from right to left, the objects only need to touch the box. So you'll see now that as soon as this box intersects with the geometry of the circle is becoming selected. And it's the same with this one here. Watch. As soon as I move it over this little rectangle, it's going to become selected. There. And so on and so forth. Okay? So this way, it's a little bit quicker. If I want to just select these 3 objects right here, I don't want to have to move my mouse all the way up there and draw this box and then go around like that. My mouse is right here, and this is where I'm concentrating my drawing. I can very quickly just click, draw a box this way, and as long as it's touching all 3 of those objects, they're going to get selected, okay? So those are the 2 types of selection windows. And then there's another way to do it, which is a free form or a lasso selection. Okay, if you've ever seen cowboys, they use that rope, it's a lasso, they throw it around a cow's neck or something and pull it in. Well, AutoCAD has a function, it's not quite as cool, but you can left click, and now instead of releasing the click as I would to draw a box, I keep the left click depressed. Okay, I keep it held in, and then you'll see that as I move the mouse, wherever I move the mouse, it draws a little pattern. Okay, following my mouse cursor, and you'll see that that pattern is connected by a straight line all the way back to the beginning. So I can draw this really weird shape, looks like the letter E here. And if I release my mouse, it's going to join that shape, it's going to make it a hole. Okay, I didn't select anything that time. Let me actually draw it around some objects. So I'm going to click, keep it clicked in. I'm going to move my mouse around. Let's say I want to select that one. I'm going to let go now. There, selected that. So this helps if you have a bunch of objects that are all over the place. Maybe they intersect one another. And if you were to draw a box around them, you know, you would end up selecting some or a few of ones that you don't want. So it all depends on the kind of geometry you have. But lasso selection can help if you want to try and sort objects out. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to draw this lasso. Let's say I want this object here. And let's say I want this one here. And I'm going to let go. There. It selected those two objects. So that's a good way to just kind of a free form selection cloud around the things that you want to select. And well, that's basically selection in a nutshell. Okay, we can select single objects by just highlighting them and clicking on them. Left click, 1, 2, 3, 4, however many we want. I can deselect them by holding in Shift. Okay, deselect. Oop, that one there, that one there, that one there. Okay, I can draw a window from left to right. I can draw one from right to left. And I don't have to go from right to left moving down. I can also go right to left moving up, okay? Same thing. So blue, all the objects have to fall within it. Green, the objects only have to touch it. And then the last part of these notes are object grips, which is simply when you select it, you'll see that these grips appear. So a circle will have them on these extremities there, and one in the center, and something like a rectangle will have them on the corners and on the lines. Okay, every time you see those blue grips, you know that that circle is or that piece of geometry has been selected. And the other key thing about grips, and it's why it's highlighted in yellow here on the notes, is that it's a really easy way to manipulate the shape of an object. Okay, by just moving my mouse over one of these little corner grips there, and you can see it kind of snaps almost, and it gives me a few options there. I can now drag this little grip around, and not just the corners, I can grab these pieces over here as well. I can click on it and just move my mouse and click, move my mouse. So I can completely change the shape of this object by just clicking on those grips. Okay, I'm going to move this one out here somewhere where we can see it. Select it so I can see its grips. Now I'm going to move this grip over there, move that grip over there, and because I've got object snapping on, remember, I can take this grip, and if I want to make it touch this corner here, because of object snapping, it's going to find those 2 points. See, it's showing me that green square there, and I can use grips to snap objects together. And when you start drawing, this will make a lot more sense. But it's a really cool way to just quickly manipulate objects and move them around. So there is a specific move command, but just by selecting this grip in the center of this circle, I can move it that way. So it's a real quick and easy way of doing things, and I can make it smaller as well by selecting this grip there. So that's grips. Really cool feature. Okay, and that's the end of this very short little chapter, chapter 3. Page 9 of the notes, and we'll move on to chapter 4 now, which is the drawing tools, and this is where the fun starts.